Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The roar of 80,000 spectators rattled the Durasteel rafters of Neotar's bloody Colosseum. Holographic advertisements for Zilk's Syntho beer and black market neural enhancers flickered in the air, casting oscillating shadows across the ancient arena. 6 orbital cameras swooped through the air like metal vultures, broadcasting the event to 18 systems in the outer rim. Beneath the western stand's shadow, Corey Laser sprawled on his back, one arm thrown over his eyes. His worn black coat served as a makeshift pillow against the hard metal floor. The deafening roar of the crowd penetrated even through his noise-canceling earbuds, where the gentle melodic tones of Andromeda's symphony, No. 5 fought a losing battle against the arena's chaos. "Ugh!" he groaned, fishing into the crumpled bag of Galacto Crunch with his free hand. His fingers scraped the bottom, retrieving only crumbs. Tragedy. Corey's stubbled jaw worked methodically as he chewed. His lanky frame relaxed despite the uncomfortable ground. Sleep hovered just out of reach. His 27 years had taught him one invaluable skill, the ability to rest anywhere, through anything. The shadows beneath his eyes testified to his mastery of this art. A security guard's boot nudged his leg. "Hey, vagrant, you can't sleep here." Corey didn't move. "I'm not sleeping. I'm existing with my eyes closed." "Same difference. Move it, or I'll call enforcement." With a sigh that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, Corey lifted his arm slightly. One bloodshot eye regarded the uniformed guard. "The upper decks are too loud. Trust me, I tried." The guard sneered, taking in Corey's disheveled appearance, the 3-day stubble, the rumpled clothes, the half-empty snack bag. "How'd you even get in here? These tickets cost 3 months' wages." Corey's eye drifted closed again. "Side entrance has a broken lock. Has for years." The guard cursed and activated his comm unit. "Maintenance? Yeah, southwest entrance needs. Now approaching the main event of the evening." The announcer's voice boomed through the arena's speaker system, temporarily deafening all other sounds. The guard flinched, then glared at Corey, who hadn't moved. "You got 5 minutes!" the guard spat, then hurried away to his station, unwilling to miss the spectacle. Corey fished out his last piece of Galacto Crunch and popped it into his mouth, savoring the artificial cheese flavor. 5 minutes. He could squeeze in a solid 4-minute nap. The crowd's roar transformed from its steady drone into something sharper, hungrier. Despite himself, Corey cracked one eye open again, glancing toward the arena floor. "Citizens of the 18 systems, tonight we witness the sacred ritual of cleansing. The Zur-Ari Empire must be purged of its failures." A spotlight pierced the center of the arena, where a massive containment cube pulsed with sickly green light. Something inside thrashed against the walls, causing the entire structure to shudder. The Zorg Master awakens. Birthed in the laboratories of the Outer Drecht, this perfect killing machine will cleanse the royal bloodline. The second spotlight swung to the eastern entrance, where 4 guards in ceremonial armor dragged a struggling figure into the arena. Even from his shadowed vantage point, Corey couldn't miss her. The woman's crimson skin gleamed under the harsh lights, a startling contrast to her white ceremonial gown. Heavy chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles, yet she moved with defiance, her head held high. Her blue eyes, electric, unnaturally bright, swept the arena with undisguised contempt. "Rem Nalia, last daughter of the fallen empire, your ancestors' crimes against the Galactic Accord will be purged through your sacred sacrifice." The crowd went wild, stomping and chanting, "Purge, purge, purge!" Corey groaned, pressing his earbuds deeper. For fuck's sake! Rem was forced to her knees in the center of the arena, 20 meters from the containment cube. Her crimson skin flushed darker as she struggled against her bonds. "I am Rem Nalia, rightful heir to the Zur-Ari throne. Her voice rang out, cutting through the crowd's noise. My people committed no crime. The true criminals stand before me, hiding behind the blood of innocents. One guard struck her across the face. The crowd cheered. Great, Corey muttered. Now they'll be even louder. The containment cube's sides began to lower with hydraulic hisses. Rem's shoulders tensed, but her gaze never wavered. The first of the Zorg Master's 6 mouths appeared over the edge of the cube, a writhing mass of metal teeth and organic tissue, dripping with yellow-green fluid that sizzled when it hit the arena floor. No. Only not this, Corey sighed, finally sitting up. Now this beast will roar all night. The Zorg Master emerged fully, a nightmarish fusion of metal and corrupted flesh. 6 mouths arranged in a circular pattern around a central body mass, each dripping sulfuric acid. Its eyes, 12 of them, glowing like molten copper, swiveled independently. The forked tail, tipped with foot-long metal barbs, lashed the ground, leaving deep gouges in the arena floor. Behold the instrument of cleansing! The creature released a sound that wasn't quite a roar, more like 6 different shrieks layered over each other, amplified by internal speakers. The sound penetrated Corey's earbuds like needles. That's it, he growled, pulling out his earbuds and stuffing them into his coat pocket. So much for my nap. With movements that seemed deliberately slow, he rose to his feet, dusted off his coat and folded it over one arm. He checked his other coat pocket, confirming he had a backup pack of lunar puffs. The Zorg Master stalked toward Rem, its movements oddly graceful for something so grotesque. The crowd's frenzy reached new heights. Rem remained kneeling, her eyes locked on the approaching monstrosity. Corey descended the steps toward the arena floor, moving with the unhurried pace of someone heading to an unpleasant dental appointment. The few spectators he passed were too engrossed in the spectacle to notice him. A barrier gate separated the stands from the arena floor. Corey examined it for approximately 2 seconds before simply climbing over it. A security alarm blared, adding to the cacophony. Hey, you can't! A security guard's shout was swallowed by the crowd's roar as the Zorg Master lunged at Rem. Corey covered the distance across the arena with surprising speed for someone who'd appeared half asleep moments ago. His expression remained bored, almost annoyed, as he positioned himself between the lunging creature and the chained woman. "Excuse me," he said to no one in particular, and yawned. The Zorg Master's primary mouth descended toward him, acid dripping from its metal fangs. Corey's fist shot upward, connecting with the precise spot between the creature's multiple eyes. The blow wasn't particularly dramatic. It looked almost casual, but the impact produced a sound like a thunderclap. The Zorg Master froze, its eyes suddenly unfocused. All 6 mouths snapped shut simultaneously. Then, with the grace of a collapsed souffle, the enormous creature toppled sideways, unconscious. Perfect silence fell over the bloody Colosseum. Corey rubbed his knuckles and turned toward Rem, who stared at him with those electric blue eyes, her crimson face locked in an expression of pure shock. "You're very loud," he said, reaching down to examine her chains. "And these look uncomfortable." He gripped the heavy chains in both hands and, with a sharp twist that belied his lanky frame, snapped them apart like dry twigs. Metal links scattered across the arena floor. Rem found her voice. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who wanted a nap." Corey hoisted her over his shoulder in a single fluid motion. "And now we're leaving because this place is giving me a headache." "Put me down," Rem demanded, pounding his back with her fists. "I am royalty! I am—" "Still being loud," Corey finished, retrieving his packet of lunar puffs from his pocket. He tore it open with his teeth and popped one into his mouth while walking toward the nearest exit. From the stands, someone's voice cut through the shocked silence. That was the ancient style, That technique was taught during the Union of 12 Constellations. The spell broke. The crowd erupted, thousands of voices shouting at once. Security alarms blared. The announcer's voice stuttered incomprehensibly. Corey paused at the exit gate, glancing back at the chaos. God, I hope I don't have to give a speech now. Seize them! The head ceremonial guard's amplified voice echoed through the arena. A dozen guards rushed forward, stun batons crackling with energy. Corey sighed heavily, setting Rem down beside him. Stand back a little. What are you... Just... He gestured vaguely. Less talking, more standing back. The first guard reached them, swinging his stun baton in a wide arc. Corey sidestepped with minimal effort as though the guard was moving in slow motion. His hand shot out, 2 fingers extended, and pressed a point on the guard's neck. The guard collapsed instantly. 2 more guards attacked simultaneously. Corey moved between them, his motions fluid yet somehow lackadaisical, as though he couldn't be bothered to put in full effort. One guard went down with a tap to the solar plexus. The other found himself suddenly disarmed and confused. Is this really necessary? Corey asked, catching a stun baton mid-swing and twisting it from its owner's grasp. I'm just trying to leave. You can go back to your whatever this is without me. Heretic! Screamed the head guard, pushing through his fallen comrades. The ritual must be completed. Rem stepped forward, her chains dangling broken from her wrists. Your ritual is a sham. The Zur-Ari were betrayed, not defeated. Our artifacts were stolen, not surrendered. Silence, witch. The guard raised his weapon. Everyone's so dramatic, Corey muttered, popping another lunar puff into his mouth. With his free hand, he caught the guard's wrist and applied the slightest pressure. The man dropped to his knees, face contorted in pain. Corey bent down slightly. We're leaving now. It would be energetically inefficient for you to try stopping us. He released the guard, who collapsed gasping. The remaining security personnel backed away, forming an uncertain semicircle. Rem stared at Corey, reassessing. Who trained you in the ancient forms? No one important. He offered her a lunar puff. Hungry? They're not great, but they're better than being eaten by that thing. He jerked his thumb toward the still unconscious Zorg master. She hesitated, then took one. The Imperial Palace has better food. If you escort me there, you'll be rewarded. Reward sounds like responsibility. Corey shrugged. I'd rather just find somewhere quiet to finish my nap. A hovercam swooped low, capturing their faces for the broadcast. Corey scowled and waved it away. The champion of the ancient style. The announcer's voice had regained its bombastic confidence. Come forward, hero. Tell us your name. Oh no, Corey whispered, genuine alarm crossing his face for the first time. That's my cue to leave. He grabbed Rem's hand and pulled her toward the exit. To his surprise, she didn't resist. The ship bay is this way, she said, taking the lead. I may have been captured, but I'm not without resources. Corey raised an eyebrow. You have a ship? Better. A sly smile crossed Rem's crimson face, her blue eyes glinting. I have an entire fleet waiting in the shadow of Neotar's third moon. All I needed was to escape the arena. You plan to get captured? Of course not, but I always plan for escape. She gave him an appraising look. Though I didn't plan for you. Corey sighed, resignation washing over his features. No one ever does. The Galactic Federation's flagship, Eternal Light, loomed in Neotar's orbit like a gleaming silver arrow, 2 miles of polished duratile and quantum glass, bristling with particle cannons and diplomatic credentials in equal measure. Inside its grand reception hall, beneath a holographic ceiling displaying the constellations of 18 allied systems, Corey Laser slouched in a chair too ornate for his taste, wondering how long it would take for everyone to stop talking. And therefore, droned Admiral Voltar, his metals clinking as he gestured dramatically. "We recognize you, Corey Lazer, as the heir to the legendary warrior Silantar, master of the lost forms." The assembled dignitaries erupted into applause. A delegation of blue-skinned Merlions whispered excitedly among themselves. 3 Federation generals nodded with newfound respect. Even the Quarian ambassador, whose species was famously difficult to impress, leaned forward with interest. Corey yawned. "Is there food?" he asked, interrupting Admiral Voltar mid-sentence. "I haven't eaten since those puffs at the arena." A shocked silence fell over the assembly. The Admiral's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Finally, he managed to recover. "Of course, Master Lazer. A grand feast awaits you. But first, the ceremonial bestowing of food first, ceremonies later," Corey said, rising from his chair. He rubbed his neck, which had stiffened during the Admiral's 20-minute speech. "Where's the cafeteria, or whatever you call it?" Rem, seated in a position of honor beside him, her crimson skin set off beautifully by a formal gown of midnight blue, shot him a withering glare. "You are addressing the High Admiral of the Galactic Federation," she hissed. "Show some respect." "I respect his ability to talk for 20 minutes without taking a breath," Corey replied, stretching his arms above his head. "But that doesn't make me less hungry." Admiral Voltar cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could proceed to the banquet hall now and continue the ceremonies there." "Perfect," Corey said. He glanced at Rem, who was still glaring at him. "You coming, Red? Or are you going to sit here and be angry at me all night?" "My name is Princess Rem Nalia," she said through clenched teeth. "Heir to the throne of Zur-Ari, not Red. Whatever. You still haven't told me where the kitchen is." A nervous attaché stepped forward. "Sir, the ceremonial feast is already prepared in the not interested in ceremony, just food." Corey pointed at a random door. "Through there? That's the weapons storage, sir." "Fine. Lead the way." Corey gestured impatiently. "And someone get Red, sorry, Princess Red, something to drink. She looks like she's about to explode." Rem stood, her blue eyes flashing dangerously. "I have been assigned as your official companion by ancient right. The savior of royal Zur-Ari blood is bound with the saved through sacred covenant. But don't think for one moment that gives you the right to order me around." Corey studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "Okay, but could you get me a snack while they're setting up the boring feast? I think better when I'm chewing." The princess's crimson skin darkened with rage. Several dignitaries gasped. The Federation's chief diplomat took a step backward. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Rem demanded. "You just told me, like 30 seconds ago," Corey replied, rubbing his ear. "Princess something something. Look, I've had a long day. I just wanted a nap, and instead I had to punch a monster, escape an arena, and listen to Admiral Verbose here talk about some dead warrior I'm supposedly related to. So, yeah, I'm a little hungry and a lot tired." "You don't even know who you saved, do you?" Rem's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I am Princess Rem Nalia, the last heir to the throne of Zur-Ari. My bloodline traces back 17 generations to the founding of the Galactic Accord." Corey yawned again. "You were too loud. That's all there is to it. Now, can you find the kitchen on this ship? I'm starving." The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Rem's hands clenched into fists at her sides. For a moment, it seemed she might actually strike him. Then, to everyone's astonishment, including her own, she turned and snapped at a nearby server. "Bring him food, now." The server scurried away, returning moments later with a tray of assorted delicacies. Corey took it without acknowledgement and settled back into his ornate chair, munching contentedly. "And add more salt next time," he called after the retreating server. Admiral Voltar cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should proceed to the banquet hall now." "This is fine," Corey mumbled through a mouthful of food. "Continue your ceremony thing." And so, the legendary warrior's heir was officially recognized while slouched in a chair, dropping crumbs on his already stained coat, as the assembled dignitaries of 18 systems looked on in disbelief. "He's insufferable." Rem paced the floor of her luxurious quarters aboard the Eternal Light, her crimson skin practically glowing with indignation. "Arrogant, lazy, disrespectful, and yet," interjected Mila, her personal attendant, "you brought him the food he requested." Rem stopped pacing. What was I supposed to do? Let him embarrass the entire delegation? "In my 20 years of service," Mila said carefully, arranging Rem's ceremonial gowns in the wardrobe, "I have never seen you respond to an order from anyone, not even your late father." "That wasn't—" "I didn't," Rem sputtered. "I was merely being diplomatic." "Of course, Your Highness." Mila's voice carried just a hint of amusement. "Very diplomatic." Rem collapsed into a chair, massaging her temples. The ancient right of companionship is archaic nonsense anyway. Just because he saved my life doesn't mean I have to tolerate his commanding presence, Mila suggested innocently. "He has no presence. He's just a lazy, accidentally talented nobody." "Who defeated the Zorg Master with a single punch," Mila pointed out, "and who, I might add, looks rather striking in a disheveled sort of way." "Mila!" Rem's crimson skin darkened with embarrassment. "Perhaps I should offer myself as his companion instead," Mila continued, her eyes twinkling. "He does seem quite hot." "Absolutely not," Rem snapped, sitting bolt upright. Her blue eyes flashed. "The right binds him to me, and that's final." "As you wish, Your Highness." Mila turned away to hide her smile. Rem slumped back in her chair, infuriated by her own reaction. The man was impossible, intolerable, and she absolutely, definitely was not attracted to him in any way. The diplomatic reception that evening started predictably enough. Representatives from all 18 systems offered their respects to the heir of Sailantar and the last princess of Zur-Ari. Corey, dressed in the formal attire the Federation had provided, though he'd refused to part with his black coat, which now hung incongruously over the ceremonial robes, stood beside Rem on the reception line. Every 3 minutes, like clockwork, he asked, "Is this over yet?" By the 14th time, Rem had given up responding. When they were finally seated for the formal dinner, a 17-course affair featuring delicacies from each allied system, Corey examined the array of utensils before him with deep suspicion. "Why are there 6 forks?" he whispered to Rem. "Because civilization exists," she hissed back. "Just follow my lead." Too much effort. He picked up what was actually a specialized shellfish extractor and began eating his soup with it. Rem closed her eyes briefly, counting to 10. The Merlian ambassador was midway through a toast to eternal alliance and the rebirth of ancient powers when a soft snoring sound interrupted him. All eyes turned to Corey, who had fallen asleep with his head on the table, one hand still clutching a dinner roll. Gasps echoed around the table. The Federation's chief diplomat looked like he might faint. "Please," Rem stood, smoothly taking control of the situation. "The Master has been through a tremendous ordeal today. His energy, conservation, is part of the ancient practice." Murmurs of understanding replaced the shocked silence. Someone mentioned that Sailantar himself was known for meditative states between battles. Rem glanced down at Corey's sleeping form. There was something almost childlike in his expression, peaceful, unburdened. For the briefest moment she felt a twinge of, not envy exactly, perhaps fascination. The ability to simply opt out of the performance, the protocol, the endless diplomatic dance. It was something she had never experienced. Born into royalty, trained from childhood to represent her people, Rem had never known what it meant to simply not care, It was outrageous. It was offensive. It was strangely liberating to witness. The attack came without warning 3 days later. Corey had managed to locate the most comfortable couch on the entire ship, a plush, oversized affair in an observation lounge that was rarely used. He lay sprawled across it, a half-eaten bag of synthetic cheese puffs balanced on his chest, watching stars drift by through the panoramic window. The ship's gravity suddenly fluctuated, a telltale sign of shield impact. Alarms blared throughout the eternal light. "Oh, come on," Corey groaned, cheese puffs sliding off his chest onto the floor. "Can't a guy get 5 minutes of peace?" The door to the observation lounge hissed open. Rem burst in, her formal attire replaced by a sleek battlesuit that hugged her crimson form. "There you are!" she exclaimed. "We're under attack." "I noticed," Corey said, not moving from the couch. "The alarms were subtle, but I picked up on them. This isn't a joke. The Krye-Vorg fleet has found us. They're after me." Corey sat up reluctantly, brushing cheese dust from his shirt. "Why? What'd you do to them?" "My family publicly humiliated them 120 years ago for trading humans as slaves. They've been exiled ever since, nursing their hatred." "Ah," Corey nodded. "Family drama. Always complicated." "They won't rest until I'm dead," Rem said, checking the small blaster at her hip. "We need to get to the bridge." "We? I think you mean you. I'm comfortable here." The ship rocked with another impact. The lights flickered. "Fine," Rem snapped. "Stay here and die if that's what you want." She turned to leave, but Corey's voice stopped her. "They'll board through the tertiary docking bay," he said casually, reaching for another cheese puff. "It's the weakest point in the Federation design. Always has been." Rem turned slowly. "How do you know that?" "Just do." He shrugged. "You might want to send security there, like now." Their eyes locked for a moment before Rem rushed to the comm panel on the wall. "Security to tertiary docking bay. Priority 1. When she turned back, Corey had already resumed his lounging position on the couch. "Aren't you coming?" she demanded. "Nah. Let me know how it turns out." It turned out exactly as Corey had predicted. 3 Krye-Vorg assault ships breached the tertiary docking bay. Thanks to Rem's warning, Federation security was waiting for them. The battle was fierce but contained. During the diplomatic reception that evening, hastily arranged to demonstrate that the Federation was unshaken by the minor incursion, Rem found Corey in his usual position, half asleep in a corner, nursing a drink. "How did you know?" she asked without preamble. "Know what?" he mumbled, not opening his eyes. "About the docking bay, the attack point. Lucky guess." "No one is that lucky." Corey sighed and cracked one eye open. "Look, Princess, sometimes things are just obvious if you're paying attention. The Krye-Vorg have used the same tactics for 2 centuries. It's not my fault no one else reads history." Before Rem could respond, 5 figures materialized in the center of the reception hall, Krye-Vorg assassins using short-range teleportation technology. Guests screamed and scattered as the assassins, gray-skinned and moving with insectoid speed, headed straight for Rem. "Oh, for crying out loud," Corey muttered. "I just got comfortable." The nearest assassin reached Rem, vibroblade extended. She drew her blaster, but she knew she'd be too slow. A blur of motion, and suddenly Corey stood between them. The assassin's blade met his outstretched palm and stopped. The Krye-Vorg stared in shock at its weapon, now caught in Corey's grip. "You know," Corey said conversationally, "I was actually enjoying that drink." What happened next occurred so quickly that later, when security reviewed the footage, they had to slow it down to 1/10 speed to see it clearly. Corey moved through the 5 assassins like water flowing around rocks. Each motion was minimal, precise, and devastatingly effective. In less than 4 seconds, all 5 lay unconscious on the floor. Corey hadn't spilled a drop of his drink. The entire reception hall stared in stunned silence. "It's too noisy in here," Corey announced, finishing his drink in one swallow. "I'm going to sleep." He walked out, leaving the Federation's security forces to deal with the aftermath. Admiral Voltar approached Rem, who stood frozen in place, staring after Corey. "Princess," the Admiral said quietly, "we need him to lead our forces. The Kree Vorg fleet is still out there, and they won't stop coming for you. With the heir of Selantar commanding our ships." "Good luck with that," Rem said, finally finding her voice. "He won't even command his own legs to walk to a dinner on time." But she followed after him anyway, catching up to him in the corridor. "They want you to lead the fleet against the Kree Vorg," she said. "Not interested," Corey replied without slowing his pace. "I didn't ask to be a legend. I just wanted to sleep. People will die. I might die. People always die. It's what they do." "Is that really all you care about? Sleeping and eating?" Corey stopped walking and turned to face her. For once, his eyes were fully open, alert, and for a brief moment, Rem saw something in their depths that made her breath catch, a flash of intelligence so sharp it was almost painful. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual bored expression. "Basically, yeah," he said, and continued walking. That night, after the assassination attempt, Rem couldn't sleep. Her quarters felt too quiet, too safe, which paradoxically made her anxious. The Kree Vorg had penetrated Federation security twice in one day. A third attempt was inevitable. She found herself outside Corey's assigned quarters before she'd consciously decided to go there. The door wasn't locked, of course it wasn't. He probably couldn't be bothered to press the security button. The room was dark except for the starlight filtering through the viewport. Corey lay sprawled across his bed, still fully clothed, one arm dangling over the edge. "I know you're there, Princess," he said without opening his eyes. "Your footsteps are distinctive, very royal, lots of unnecessary heel impact." "We need to talk," Rem said, stepping fully into the room. "That's what people always say before saying things I don't want to hear." She sat on the edge of his bed. "Those assassins today, you knew exactly how to fight them, their weak points, their attack patterns. Maybe they're just predictable. No one moves like you do. No one except—" "Don't say it," Corey interrupted, finally opening his eyes. "I'm not him. I'm not a legend reborn or whatever the Admiral thinks." Their faces were close in the darkness, her crimson skin almost black in the starlight, his features suddenly sharp with alertness. "Then who are you?" she whispered. "Nobody. Just a guy who wants to be left alone." "I don't believe you." Corey sighed deeply. "Your problem, not mine." Rem leaned closer. "You saved my life. Twice. That makes it very much my problem." "Maybe I just don't like noise. Maybe there's more to you than you want anyone to see." Their breath mingled in the small space between them. Neither moved. "Why are you here, Princess?" Corey asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Because—" Rem hesitated. "Because, for the first time in my life, I don't know what happens next. My empire is gone. My enemies are hunting me. The Federation sees me as a diplomatic asset, not a person, and the only one who treats me like I'm just me is you. Because I don't care about your title? Because you don't want anything from me." Corey's hand moved slowly to her face, brushing a strand of hair back. The gesture was so unexpected, so uncharacteristically tender, that Rem found herself holding her breath. "What if I do want something?" he asked, his voice barely audible. The kiss, when it happened, took them both by surprise. Neither could have said who moved first. One moment they were talking, the next they were tangled in each other's arms, all the tension and frustration of the past days channeling into something elemental and undeniable. Clothing fell away. Barriers, physical, emotional, dissolved. For the first time since they'd met, Corey was fully present, his usual languid demeanor replaced by focused intensity. His hands moved with deliberate purpose, finding places on her crimson skin that made her gasp and arch against him. In the darkness, Rem's fingers traced his body, discovering what his loose clothing had concealed. He was lean but corded with muscle, his physique that of a warrior, not a layabout. And the scars, dozens of them, some surgical in their precision, others jagged and brutal, told a story of violence and training that no ordinary drifter could have accumulated. "What are these from?" she whispered, tracing a particularly vivid scar that ran across his ribs. "Not now," he murmured against her neck. "Questions later." For once, Rem didn't press. Her body responded to his with increasing urgency, her blue eyes luminous in the darkness. Their movements synchronized with instinctive precision, as if they'd been designed to fit together. When release came for both of them, simultaneous and overwhelming, Rem cried out in a language she hadn't spoken since childhood, the ancient dialect of Zur-Ari royalty. Corey, to her astonishment, whispered a response in the same tongue before collapsing beside her. In the quiet aftermath, as they lay entwined in the tangled sheets, Rem propped herself up on one elbow to study him. "You spoke High Zur-Arian," she said. "Nobody outside the royal family knows that dialect. It died with my empire." Corey's eyes remained closed. "I'm good with languages." "You're lying." "I'm sleeping." "No, you're not." "I'm trying to." She traced the line of a scar that ran from his collarbone to his shoulder. "These aren't the marks of someone who spends his life avoiding effort. Maybe I had a rough childhood. Maybe you're not who you pretend to be." Corey sighed and opened his eyes. "Does it matter? Right now, in this moment, does it really matter who I am or where I came from?" Rem considered this. "I suppose not." "Good." He pulled her down beside him. "Then let's enjoy now and worry about identities later." She settled against him, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. For the first time since her capture, she felt truly safe. Within minutes, lulled by the rhythm of his breathing, she drifted into deep sleep. Corey remained awake long after she slumbered, staring at the ceiling, his usual mask of indifference replaced by an expression of complex calculation. He stroked her hair absently, his mind clearly elsewhere. When he finally did sleep, his breathing deepened into a resonant snore that would have been comical under other circumstances. Neither of them heard the ship's alarms when they first sounded. The Kryvorg strike team was smarter this time. They bypassed the ship's main systems, targeting life support just long enough to deploy a targeted sedative gas through the ventilation system of the VIP quarters. By the time security realized what was happening, it was too late. 4 commandos in breathing apparatus slipped into Corey's quarters, their movements silent and efficient. They found the pair entwined in sleep, Corey snoring thunderously, completely oblivious to their presence. "The legendary warrior," one commando sneered through his mask. "Pathetic." They injected Rem with a paralytic that would keep her immobilized but conscious, then left Corey undisturbed. Their orders were specific: take the princess, leave a message. As they carried Rem from the room, her eyes wide with horror but her body unresponsive, the lead commando paused to glance back at Corey's sleeping form. "Some protector," he said, loud enough for Rem to hear. "He doesn't even wake while we take his woman." Corey's only response was another thunderous snore. Morning aboard the Eternal Light brought chaos. Half the ship's systems were malfunctioning after the Kryvorg's precise sabotage. Security teams scrambled to assess the damage. Admiral Voltar stood on the bridge, his face ashen as the magnitude of the failure became clear. "How did they take her?" he demanded. "Where was her protection detail?" "Unconscious, sir. The gas." "And him? Where is the heir of Selantar?" As if summoned by the question, the bridge doors slid open to admit Corey, looking exactly as he always did, rumpled, bored, munching on some unidentifiable snack he'd procured from somewhere. Admiral Voltar's face reddened with rage. "You!" Corey raised an eyebrow mid-chew. "Me! The princess has been kidnapped by Kree Vorg forces. They took her from your quarters while you slept." "Yeah, I noticed she was gone," Corey said, fishing another snack from his pocket. "Bed got a lot roomier." The Admiral's fist slammed down on a console. "You are useless. The heir of the greatest warrior in galactic history, and you can't even protect one woman. She believed in you." Corey regarded the Admiral's outburst with mild interest. "You're all too noisy," he said finally, turning to leave. "Way too much shouting this early in the day." "Where are you going?" the Admiral bellowed. Corey didn't bother to look back as the bridge doors slid open before him. "Somewhere quieter," he said, and disappeared down the corridor. Cold metal bit into Rem's wrists as the restraints tightened. The interrogation chamber aboard the Kree Vorg flagship, Vengeance Eternal, hummed with pulsing machinery, its purpose unmistakable. Pain delivery systems, elegant, efficient, and thoroughly illegal under galactic accords. General Vrax, Supreme Commander of the Kree Vorg fleet, circled her with predatory satisfaction. His mottled gray skin stretched tight across a face that seemed composed entirely of angles and hatred. "Princess Rem N'Alia," he savored each syllable, "last of a disgraced bloodline. How fitting that you should end here, where your ancestors sent mine into exile." Rem lifted her chin, her crimson skin gleaming under the harsh lights. "My ancestors enforced galactic law against slavers. History will remember them as heroes." Vrax leaned close enough that she could smell his breath, like burnt circuits and decay. "History is written by survivors, Princess, and your story ends today." He nodded to a technician who approached with a neural crown, a circlet of barbed metal designed to extract information directly from the subject's brainstem. Survivability rate, less than 30%. "The Zur-Ari genetic code," Vrax continued, "locked in your royal DNA, the key to the Star Rift weapon. You will give it to us before you die." Rem struggled against her restraints, but they only tightened further, drawing blood from her wrists. She thought of Corey, still snoring in his bed while she was abducted. The memory should have angered her, but instead, an unexpected calm settled over her. "He was right," she murmured. "Sometimes it's better not to resist, but to wait for the moment." Vrax's eyes narrowed. "Your Federation lover? The so-called heir of Saylantar?" He laughed, a harsh metallic sound. "He didn't even wake as we took you, some legendary warrior." The neural crown descended toward her head. Rem took a deep breath, preparing for agony. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, then darkness, followed by the dull red glow of emergency systems. Vrax's head snapped up. "What's happening?" "Life support systems are failing in sectors 3 through 7, Commander," a voice reported over the intercom. "Backup power not responding. Impossible. Run diagnostics." "Sir," another voice cut in, "someone has breached the inner sanctum perimeter. Security feeds are down, but guards report finding snack wrappers on the floor." Vrax's face contorted with confusion. "What?" The ship shuddered. Alarms blared from multiple stations. "Sir, someone's accessing the Star Rift control systems." Vrax's eyes widened with genuine fear. "Lock it down, now." In the heart of the flagship, 6 decks below the command center, Corey Laser slouched in a control chair that hadn't been occupied for at least a century. The ancient chamber pulsed with soft blue light, panels activating as his fingers trailed lazily across them. "Where's the damn food prep unit in this place?" he muttered, unwrapping a foil-covered burrito he'd somehow smuggled aboard. "Cold lunch is just sad." He poked at various symbols on the control panel, yawning widely. You'd think an advanced civilization would label their buttons better. The burrito sat on what appeared to be a scanning plate. Corey pressed a sequence that looked promising. The plate glowed red, but the burrito remained stubbornly cold. "Great engineering, guys," he grumbled, reaching for another control. "Maybe this one." A holographic display sprang to life, showing the entire Kryvorg fleet formation, 17 warships arranged in classical attack position. Tiny warning symbols pulsed across the image. "Nope, definitely not the microwave," Corey sighed. He jabbed at another control. The chamber's lighting shifted from blue to red. A melodic female voice spoke in an ancient dialect. "Self-destruct protocols initiated. Authorization required." Corey raised an eyebrow, momentarily interested. That's not great." He pressed another button. A small tray extended from beneath the console, offering what appeared to be a palm scanner. "Maybe this is for heating," he wondered aloud, placing his hand on the scanner while reaching for his burrito with the other. The scanner pulsed, analyzing his DNA. The melodic voice returned. "Genetic identification confirmed. Fail-safe authorization accepted. Countdown initiated." Corey blinked. "Wait, what?" On the holographic display, one of the warships suddenly erupted in a spectacular explosion. "Oh," Corey said, watching with mild surprise. "Definitely not the microwave." On the command bridge, chaos erupted. Officers shouted over each other as reports of catastrophic systems failures poured in from throughout the fleet. "The Relentless just exploded," screamed a communications officer. "No warning, no attack, it just detonated from within." Vrax gripped the command rail, his knuckles white. "Impossible! The failsafe codes died with the Zur-Ari Empire." Another explosion lit up the view screen, the heavy cruiser inevitable breaking apart in a spectacular burst of light. "Sir," a pale-faced lieutenant reported, "someone has activated the Royal Failsafe Protocol from the inner sanctum. The entire fleet is compromised." "Who?" Vrax roared. "Who could possibly—" The doors to the bridge hissed open. Every head turned. Corey Laser stood in the doorway, munching on his now somehow heated burrito, looking mildly annoyed. He surveyed the pandemonium with the disinterested air of someone watching a mildly boring holovid. "Your ship," he said between bites, "has terrible food options." Vrax stared at him, momentarily speechless. Behind him, another warship exploded on the view screen. "Guards!" Vrax finally managed. "Kill him!" 4 guards rushed forward. Corey sidestepped the first without appearing to move, tripped the second with his foot, and somehow the third and fourth collided with each other, all without Corey interrupting his chewing. "Seriously," he continued, as if the attack hadn't happened, "not even a basic replicator in your ancient weapon control room. Poor planning." "How did you get aboard?" Vrax demanded. "How did you find us? How—" "Tracking beacon," Corey said, tapping his ear. "Planted it on red while she was sleeping. Basic precaution." Rem, still strapped to the interrogation chair, stared at him in disbelief. You knew they'd take me?" "Figured someone would, eventually." Corey shrugged. "You're kind of important, apparently." Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. "You've doomed us all," Vrax shrieked. "The Royal Failsafe can't be stopped once activated." "Bummer," Corey replied, finishing his burrito and crumpling the wrapper. He glanced at Rem. "We should probably go. This place has no snacks and is also, exploding." With casual efficiency, he crossed to her chair and snapped her restraints with his bare hands. "You absolute idiot," she hissed as he helped her up. "What did you do?" "Tried to heat my lunch." He glanced around the bridge at the panicking crew, found a button, pressed it. He paused. Turns out it wasn't the microwave. Vrax lunged at them with a vibro blade, his face contorted with rage. "You will die with us, Silantar's heir." Corey caught the blade between two fingers, looking almost bored. Not Silantar's heir, just a guy who wanted a nap. He flicked his wrist, and the supreme commander of the Kree Vorg fleet crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Holding Rem's hand, he led her through the chaos of the disintegrating flagship, navigating corridors that were rapidly depressurizing with the nonchalance of someone taking a casual stroll. "There's no food here," he said as they reached the hangar bay. "Let's go." In the escape shuttle, hurtling away from the imploding Kree Vorg fleet, Rem finally found her voice. "What did you do?" Corey, slouched in the pilot's chair with his feet up on the console, shrugged. "Pressed a button. Thought it was a microwave. For the burrito." He gestured vaguely at the empty wrapper. "Now I'm hungrier." "You destroyed an entire battle fleet by accident?" "Not sure it was entirely accidental," Corey said, examining his fingernails. "The system recognized my genetic code somehow. Weird, right?" Rem stared at him, pieces falling into place. Silantar wasn't just a legendary warrior. He was the royal consort to Empress Lyria of Zur-Ari. The failsafe was keyed to the royal bloodline. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Who are you, really?" Corey held her gaze for a long moment, then sighed. "Nobody important, just a guy with weird DNA who wanted a quiet life." "You're impossible," she whispered, but there was something like wonder in her voice. He grinned for the first time since she'd known him, a genuine expression that transformed his usually bored features. "I get that a lot." The last of the Kree Vorg warships exploded in spectacular fashion behind them, illuminating the cockpit in brilliant light. The victory celebration at Federation headquarters was appropriately grandiose. Dignitaries from 18 systems gathered to honor the hero of Star Rift, who had single-handedly ended the Kree Vorg threat. Corey stood on the ceremonial platform, looking uncomfortable in the formal uniform they'd insisted he wear. His eyes were closed as Admiral Voltar droned on about courage, destiny, and the rebirth of legends. "And so, on behalf of the United Systems, I present you with the rank of Supreme Admiral, command of the Third Fleet, governance of the Tarsian sector, and the Medal of Ultimate Valor." The assembled crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Corey swayed slightly on his feet, his eyes still closed. "He's deeply moved," Rem whispered to the Admiral. "This is how the ancient masters process overwhelming emotion." In reality, Corey was fast asleep, standing up. The ceremony concluded with the traditional Federation anthem, during which Corey managed to wake up just enough to accept the ceremonial sword, salute in approximately the right direction, and mutter something that could charitably be interpreted as gratitude. As the dignitaries dispersed to the grand banquet, Rem turned to congratulate him properly, only to find the space beside her empty. Corey was gone. A junior officer approached her nervously. "Your Highness, he left this for you." He handed her a crumpled napkin with hastily scrawled words. "I'm tired. Don't wake me." 1 month later, Rem stood before the newly formed Democratic Council of Zur-Ari, her crimson skin radiant in her formal abdication attire. "And so, I relinquish the crown and all its powers to the will of the people, represented by this elected council," she concluded. "May the new Zur-Ari Republic flourish in peace." The council chambers erupted in applause. Her decision had shocked many, but after the events with the Kree Vorg and the revelation of the ancient fail-safe weapons, most agreed a new system of governance was necessary. That evening, as she packed her few personal possessions, her attendant Mila approached. "Are you certain about this? Rem?" Mila asked. "Giving up the throne is one thing, but disappearing entirely." Rem smiled, a peaceful expression that had been rare on her face before. "I've spent my whole life being what others needed me to be. Now I want to discover who I am without the crown." And this has nothing to do with a certain lazy hero who vanished without a trace? Mila's eyes twinkled. Don't be ridiculous, Rem replied, her crimson skin darkening slightly with a blush. I simply need time away from politics. Of course, Mila said, unconvinced. And the fact that you've spent 3 weeks having intelligence officers track his possible whereabouts is merely coincidental. Rem chose not to dignify this with a response. The abandoned moon of Lycia 4 orbited a gas giant in a neutral sector, technically unclaimed by any system. Its atmosphere had been terraformed centuries ago for a mining operation that had subsequently failed, leaving behind a surprisingly beautiful landscape of purple mountains and azure lakes. Rem's small craft landed on a natural plateau overlooking one such lake. Near the shore stood a simple structure, a house built of local stone and salvaged ship parts, elegant in its utilitarian design. Heart-pounding, she approached the door. No security systems, no locks. It swung open at her touch. Inside, the house was sparsely furnished but comfortable. A half-eaten bag of snacks sat on a table. Large windows captured the stunning view. She found him in the bedroom, sprawled across a large bed, hugging a pillow, deeply asleep. His face looked younger in repose, unburdened by even the minimal effort he expended when awake. Without hesitation, Rem slipped out of her travel clothes and slid into the bed beside him. His body was warm, familiar. Without opening his eyes, his arm moved to accommodate her, pulling her close. "You're the laziest savior I've ever known," she whispered. "And you're the loudest I still haven't kicked out," he murmured back, his voice thick with sleep. When her breathing deepened into sleep, Corey opened his eyes. The drowsy indifference was gone, replaced by sharp, calculating intelligence. He reached for a hidden communicator beneath the mattress. A text message glowed on its screen. Operation complete. Galactic balance restored. He deleted the message, then gazed down at Rem's sleeping form. With unexpected tenderness, he brushed his lips against her forehead, then closed his eyes again, this time falling into genuine sleep. 3 months later, they sat on the terrace overlooking the lake. The double suns of the Lycian system were setting, painting the sky in spectacular shades of orange and purple. Rem scrolled through a data tablet, keeping abreast of galactic politics despite her retirement. The peace treaty between the Federation and the remaining Kryvorg colonies was ratified yesterday, she reported. Apparently, losing their entire military leadership has made them surprisingly open to diplomacy. Imagine that, Corey drawled, lounging in a chair with his feet propped up on the railing. He reached into a bag of his ever-present snacks, the motion automatic after months of contented routine. Suddenly, his hand froze halfway to his mouth. His body tensed subtly. Rem glanced up. "What is it?" Corey tilted his head, listening intently. A small smile, rare and genuine, spread across his face. "It's quiet," he said simply. "Perfectly quiet." He held out the bag of snacks, offering her one. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, their fingers brushing in a comfortable intimacy neither of them had expected to find. The suns dipped below the horizon, casting the terrace in deepening twilight. Neither moved to turn on lights. They simply sat together in the perfect, peaceful silence. End. Dear listener, you've just witnessed what happens when a guy who really just wanted a nap gets dragged into galactic politics. Some might call it destiny. Others might call it dumb luck. Corey would call it too much effort for too little payoff. Yet, here we are. Perhaps in the silence of Lycia Fumform, as two suns set over an artificial lake, there's a lesson about the universe. Sometimes, the most powerful forces aren't the ones making all the noise. Sometimes they're the ones reaching for another snack, wondering why everyone else is being so dramatic about everything. If you're still wondering about Corey's true identity, the mysterious messages on his hidden communicator, or the coincidental genetic match with an ancient fail-safe system, well, that would require more explanation, and frankly, that sounds exhausting. As Corey might say, questions require answers, and answers just lead to more questions. Very inefficient. So instead, I'll leave you here, in the perfect quiet of a moment between a former princess and a reluctant hero, where for once nobody needs saving, nothing needs explaining, and the universe can handle its own problems for a while. After all, isn't that what we're all looking for? A little peace and quiet, a good snack, and maybe someone who sees us for who we really are, not what the galaxy needs us to be. Now, if you'll excuse me, all this writing has made me hungry and a little sleepy. A lazy author,